Hi everyone, welcome back to Mad Barn Academy. And if you're new here, welcome. We hope to earn your subscription today. And a big thank you to everyone who's liked and subscribed to our channel thus far. We greatly appreciate the continued support. I'm Dr. Fran Rowe, one of the veterinary nutritionists here at Mad Barn. Today we'll be following up on our vitamin E video by talking about selenium. Similarly to vitamin E, our team gets a lot of questions about selenium, namely, am I giving too much selenium? Is my horse at risk for selenium toxicity? And I think most horse owners have been conditioned to be wary of selenium because of the risk of toxicity. However, we also find that many horse owners don't realize that their horses might actually be deficient in selenium intake. So today we'll do a deep dive into selenium, why it's so important to make sure your horse is receiving appropriate intake, and some tips and tricks about supplementing additional selenium in the diet. All right, let's get started. So selenium is an essential trace mineral in the equine diet that serves numerous critical roles in the body, including neuromuscular, immune, and reproductive health. Selenocysteine is the main biological form of selenium. It is an analog of the amino acid cysteine, in which the sulfur atom has been replaced by a selenium. Virtually all selenium-containing proteins and enzymes known to date use selenocysteine as their active catalytic site. And I wanted to go ahead and put this detail in first and foremost because we'll talk about it a bit later, but selenium can be acquired from the diet in two main forms, either organic or inorganic forms. The organic forms are more bioavailable and the preferred sources, and we'll touch on that a little bit more. So one of the best understood biological functions of selenium is its role as an antioxidant. So antioxidants are molecules that neutralize free radicals and protect the body against oxidative stress. We often talk about selenium and vitamin E together because these two antioxidants work together to protect cell membranes against oxidative damage. Two good examples of selenoproteins involved in oxidative protection are glutathione peroxidase and thyroredoxin reductase. GPX converts harmful peroxides into inert molecules that can be safely excreted from the body, while TRXR is able to regenerate spent vitamin E molecules that have been oxidized during free radical neutralization, kind of essentially recycling them for continued use. Some of the other important functions of selenoproteins include normal thyroid function, reproductive health, particularly when talking about male fertility, muscle health, and immune support. It should be noted, selenium is still a really active topic of research, both in human medicine and in animals. So some of the pathways or links between selenium and these functions remains elusive right now. So selenium requirements have been established by the NRC, and baseline requirements are between 0.1 and 0.125 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter per day, depending on the horse's physiologic status. However, it's important to realize that these numbers are not necessarily reflective of optimal intake. They are just the numbers that have been established to prevent deficiency. NRC guidelines suggest that double or triple baseline is actually ideal to ensure optimal health and performance. So to determine your horse's selenium requirement, you'll simply multiply their weight in kilograms by 2% to figure out how much dry matter they consume daily. You're then going to take that value, which is 10 kilograms in our example here, and multiply by the intake. And this tells you how many milligrams of selenium your horse should be receiving daily for their body weight. The upper tolerable limit for selenium intake is 2 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, or 20 milligrams per day for the average sized horse. We'll talk more about selenium toxicity in a few later slides, but I do want to go ahead and point out that there is a really big difference between optimal intake at 2 to 3 milligrams per day and this toxic level. So, in theory, horses acquire selenium from their diets from forages, either pasture or hay. However, the selenium content of that forage depends on the selenium concentration of the soil that it's grown in. Some parts of North America are selenium deficient, meaning the soil in these areas is extremely low in selenium. As we can see from the map, these regions include the Pacific Northwest, the Great Lakes region, and pretty much the entire eastern seaboard. Conversely, selenium adequate soils are primarily found in the American Midwest. It's important to note that this map merely shows selenium soil trends. Soil characteristics and weather conditions can also impact selenium accumulation in plants. For example, increased accumulation can occur in alkaline soils or during really dry or drought growing conditions, while decreased accumulation can occur in acidic soils or particularly humid or wet growing conditions. This is why forage testing is really the best way to determine the selenium concentration in your pastures and hay. So, as expected, selenium deficiency is most common in horses living in these low selenium regions of North America. Deficiency results in a disease called nutritional myodegeneration, or NMD. You also may have heard of this disease referred to as white muscle disease. So, the muscles that are highly metabolically active, like the heart muscle, diaphragm, gluteal muscles, the tongue, are going to be the muscles most commonly affected by this disease. And while disease can certainly develop in adult horses, it's much more commonly observed in foals. So the clinical signs of NMD include progressive weakness, increased recumbency or laying down, or an inability to stand, difficulty chewing, swallowing, or nursing if it's a foal, muscle fasciculations, elevated heart rate, respiratory rate, and shallow breathing, and then certainly in very severe cases, sudden death due to heart failure. Unfortunately, treatment of NMD is rarely successful due to the irreversible damage to the muscles in the heart. I will say if the disease is caught early enough, foals do have a fair chance at recovery with treatment. However, if there is substantial cardiac involvement, it's generally going to be fatal for that animal. This is why prevention is really the best medicine when it comes to selenium deficiency. Selenium status starts in utero when that foal is developing in that pregnant mare. So it's critical that brood mares receive adequate selenium intake during gestation to set that foal up for success once it's born and throughout life. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the opposite, which is selenium toxicity, since there's certainly a really important concern about too much selenium in the diet. So, toxicity can occur in horses that are over consuming large amounts of selenium. Remember, the upper tolerable limit for selenium intake is that 2 milligrams per kilogram of dry matter, which equals 20 milligrams per day for the average sized horse. Generally, we're aiming for 2 to 3 milligrams per day, so it really does take a remarkable amount of selenium to reach this toxic level. Additionally, toxicity is more likely to occur in horses that are over-consuming inorganic selenium sources versus organic sources. So how does toxicity happen? One option is horses being fed selenium-containing products beyond the recommended rate from the label, or there's been some type of formulation error during the manufacturing process. The other option is horses that ingest toxic plants. So certain plants accumulate extreme amounts of selenium from the soils and therefore become toxic to grazing livestock. These plants, which I've listed here on this slide, are going to be found primarily in the American Mid and Southwest. So for those of you living in those regions, it'll be important to familiarize yourself with these species so that you can identify them in your pastures and remove them. So selenium toxicity can present in two ways, either acutely or chronically. Acute toxicity usually results in sudden death, and it's primarily going to be due to oral dosing or oral consumption of improperly formulated supplements. The more common scenario is chronic toxicity, in which these horses are over-consuming kind of moderately high amounts of selenium over a longer period of time. The condition is often referred to as bobtail disease or alkali disease because one of the classic signs is thinning or loss of the tail. So to determine the selenium status in horses, we'll submit blood work for whole blood selenium. You can run selenium off of serum, but whole blood is a little bit more accurate for determining current selenium status in horses. Of course, the treatment plan is going to depend on the primary concern for that horse and the result of that blood work. But generally for selenium deficiency, your vet may recommend a series of IM selenium injections to really rapidly boost selenium levels in the body. For toxicity, there's no real specific treatment beyond supportive care and decreasing selenium in the diet. Okay, so lastly, let's wrap up with talking about how we recommend supplementing selenium. So when we talk about supplementation, it's important to look for products that use the organic form of selenium. This form is more bioavailable and it's less likely to be a cause of toxicity. You might see them listed on the label as either some type of selenium yeast or selenomethionine, for example. If the selenium is inorganic, you'll see it listed as selenate, selenide, or selenite. If you're living in a deficient region, it's safe to assume that your horse is going to need extra supplementation. If you're in a marginal or adequate region, it would be worth having your forage tested so that you know if extra selenium supplementation is needed in the diet. And remember, there can be pockets of high and low selenium kind of anywhere in these regions. So forage testing is really the only way to definitively know how much selenium is being provided by your hay or your pasture. Lastly, it's never wrong to reach out to a nutritionist if you're unsure if your horse's diet is balanced. I've included links in the description below for our forage analysis service and our diet evaluation service. We're here to help, so don't hesitate to call, text, email, submit a diet evaluation, etc. Alrighty, so here are references for today, and I want to thank everybody for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and explore the other videos on our channel. If you haven't seen the vitamin E video that I posted most recently, go ahead and check that out since I do think it pairs well with today's topic. And be sure to check out the additional links I've provided in the description below. All right, guys, until next time.